I was driving past the dry grasslands of Willow Creek, Virginia, when I saw them tearing down my granddad General George Geo Ramsey's horse barn, while he was still inside. I'm not kidding. I arrived just in time to see Geo, 78, in striped pajamas and an old army jacket, holding a mug of black coffee, standing calmly amid the shaking wooden frame as a roaring excavator loomed a dozen steps away. Vic Malone, the hard-hatted contractor, looked flustered, yelling, "Sir, you need to leave the site now." Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. Geo didn't even blink. "Son," he said, voice deep like a battlefield command. "This barn stood through 2 wars and 3 storms. I built part of it myself with timber from Fort Grayson, wood from a World War II military base. I'm not budging just because some suburban overlord, with a clipboard and an inflated ego, decides to throw a tantrum." I parked hastily on the shoulder, heart pounding, unable to believe how calm he was. Vic waved to his crew. "Keep going," and then the excavator charged, its steel blade slamming into the west wall, splintering wood everywhere. I nearly leapt from the truck shouting, "Geo," and ran toward the barn, feet slipping on dusty ground. But he just took a final sip of coffee and stepped out of the frame like he was exiting a Broadway stage. The moment his boots hit the ground, the whole barn collapsed behind him, aged beams crashing in a slow cloud of dust, like a pile of shattered wood and legacy. He turned to me, smiling, the smile of a man who'd set a trap 5 moves ahead, and said, "They just declared war on the wrong general, Ellie." I stood frozen, breath ragged, hands shaking as I stared at the wreckage that used to be the barn, where he'd told me about Thunderbolt, the legendary parade horse, where he'd taught me to tie ropes amid the smell of hay. Vic backed off, signaling his crew to stop, looking like he'd just realized he'd messed with the wrong guy. I turned to Geo, voice cracking. "You okay? Why didn't you run?" He patted my shoulder, smirking. "Run? I didn't run from Nazi gunfire. Why would I run from this bunch?" From a distance, I saw Marlene Baxter, Pine Hollow HOA president, striding over, live streaming on her phone, voice triumphant. "This barn was a fire hazard. The neighborhood's safer now. Thank me later." I wanted to lunge and snatch the phone from her, but Geo held me back with a steely glare. He picked up a wood shard from the debris, stroking it like a medal. "This wasn't just any barn," he said, voice so low I had to lean in to hear. "It's military heritage, built from Fort Grayson timber, where me and my squad trained war horses. They think tearing it down ends it. They don't know what's coming." I nodded, though my head was still spinning. The barn, where I'd sat listening to his Normandy stories, where he'd shown me how to hold a rifle, was now just splinters and dust. But looking at Geo, I knew he wasn't joking. He leaned on his cane, staring down Vic and Marlene, then turned to me. "Ellie, get a pen and paper. We're gonna make him pay every cent." His tone wasn't a threat. It was a promise. It all started months ago. Silly as usual. A new HOA board took over Pine Hollow, the little neighborhood next to Geo's land. They called themselves the Community Harmony Council, a name I found bitterly ironic watching that excavator flatten the barn. Marlene led the charge, the type to print business cards for an unpaid gig, and once called the cops over a neighbor's barking dog. She targeted Geo from the start, sending petty fine letters to his house. One day it was the barn as a fire hazard, the next it was polluting, though it sat fully on his private land, beyond HOA reach. I remember first seeing those letters on Geo's kitchen table. He opened one, skimmed it, and smirked. "She thinks I'll clear out the barn over this paper." I led troops across the Rhine, not here quaking over $50 fines, but Marlene didn't stop. She upped her game, sending a list of violations. Grass around the barn was unsanitary, wind through the wood gaps was noise pollution. I laughed out loud reading that, but Geo just folded it up, saying, "Funny until they bring the excavator." And then they targeted the barn. The structure Geo restored by hand with Fort Grayson wood, a wartime military base. It sat on his land's edge, by a creek marking a Civil War boundary, totally out of HOA jurisdiction. But that didn't faze Marlene. She deemed it an eyesore to the neighborhood aesthetic. I'd heard Geo talk about the barn over campfire nights. "Ellie, this isn't just wood, it's where Thunderbolt stood, the horse I led in the 46 parade. It's history, not trash for them to wreck." Marlene didn't care about history. She sent a final letter declaring the barn condemned for public safety, with a fake termite report. I bet she cooked up on her home printer. Geo had enough. He sat down, wrote a 3-page reply, citing Virginia heritage preservation laws, private land rights, and a florid passage about the barn's listing in the state military heritage registry. I helped him mail it, thinking that'd end it. but Marlene didn't even read it. She responded by slapping a neon orange sticker on the barn door. Scheduled for demolition. Mandatory HOA compliance. I still remember Gio holding that sticker, lip curling. She just sent junk mail to a general. He scribbled on it, "Return to sender. Illegal trash," and told me to toss it in Marlene's mailbox. I thought that was that, but I was wrong. Marlene didn't back off. She doubled down. She started sending threatening letters, each more absurd. One accused Gio of failing to cooperate with neighborhood beautification goals. Another called the barn a security threat, due to its outdated structure. We laughed about that one, for 10 minutes straight. Gio joking, must be blocking her radar. Marlene didn't stop at petty fines, or that orange demolition sticker I'd thrown back at her. She once sent a 2-page report, fabricating that the barn posed a public danger due to termites and collapse risk. Gio read it in front of me, smirking. Termites. This barn's weathered storms Pine Hollow couldn't handle. She think I'm an idiot. He called it a sham. The barn was on private land, beyond HOA power, and he knew the law better than their flimsy rules. I asked, why didn't you stop them before the excavator showed up? He sank into his armchair, gripping his cane. I did stop him, Ellie. I sent Marlene a letter citing Virginia heritage laws, private property rules, and the barn's military registry listing. 3 pages, typed up. You helped me mail it. I nodded, recalling it. He'd ended with a line I couldn't forget. You're playing with fire, and I've put out whole panzer divisions. But Marlene didn't read it, or pretended not to. She replied with a short note on cheap floral paper, calling him obstinate, and threatening decisive action if he didn't comply. Gio held it up in front of me, laughing loud. Decisive action. She doesn't know I once shut up the Pentagon, when they cut warhorse funding. He tossed it in the fireplace, letting the flames eat her scribbles. She wants war, he said, and I'll give her one for the books. I felt my blood heat up, though I still worried what he'd do next. But the barn's gone now, Gio. They won. He stood, walked to the window overlooking the wreckage, eyes sharp as knives. Won? No one wins messing with my legacy without paying. This barn wasn't just wood. Ellie, it was Thunderbolt. Fort Grayson, days me and my squad sweated to keep history alive. Marlene doesn't know who she just poked. He turned, pointing at me. Get that pen and paper like I said. Write it all down from the orange sticker to her live stream voice. I'll make him rebuild every plank, and Marlene will learn not every clipboard's a crown. I nodded, feeling like I'd just been handed a military order. While he rummaged through drawers, digging through old letters and army badges, the barn was just rubble in the field now. But Gio's eyes blazed like when he'd told me about outsmarting a panzer division with a surprise move. Marlene thinks she's smarter than me, he said, pulling out a crumpled sheet with a dark red seal. Look at this. Ellie, the official demolition order she sent last week. I kept it 'cause I knew she'd do something stupid. I took the paper, scanning it. It looked like an admin doc headlined Willow Creek Parks Board with approved barn demolition. Public safety risk. But the signature below was an illegible scrawl, and the seal misspelled Willow Creek instead of Willow Creek. I looked up, stunned. This is fake. Gio, who's dumb enough to forge something and not spell check? He laughed hard, shaking the kitchen table. Stupid in lipstick, Ellie. That's Marlene, she's too impatient to do it right. He told me to drive to the Grayson County office, a few miles away, to check if any demolition order was legit. I hopped in the truck, mind reeling that Marlene didn't just wreck the barn but dared fake government docs. At the county office, a clerk named Sally eyed the paper I handed her, frowning. This isn't our seal, and there's no record of a demolition for Ramsey's barn. Who did this? I smirked. Pine Hollow HOA president. She thinks she's the law. Sally shook her head, handing me a copy of Gio's land records, confirming the barn was outside HOA reach. On the way back, I swung by the barn, or what was left of it. Vic, Malone and his crew were packing up gear, looking like they wanted out fast. I walked up, holding the fake order. Vic, you know this is bogus. He flinched, stepping back. I just followed orders, Miss Harper. Marlene gave me that paper, said it was legal. I didn't check. I nodded, jotting his words in my notebook. Gio would love this. When I got home, Gio was at the table, fresh coffee in hand, staring out at the field. I relayed the county office trip, and Vic's words, handing him the land record copy. He skimmed it, smirking, forging government docs. She just upgraded from nuisance to felon. He pointed at the fake order. Look at this signature, scribbled like a chicken scratch. I've signed off on regiment maneuvers. Never this bad. I laughed, but he got serious. This is ammunition, Ellie. Keep it safe. I asked. Why didn't you report it when you saw this? Could have stopped the demolition. He tilted his head, sipping coffee. I called the county the day Marlene sent it. They confirmed no order existed, but I wanted to see how far she'd go. Now I've got proof she dug her own grave. He set the mug down, stood. Call Ruth. I need the Defense Department in on this. Time to hit hard. I grabbed my phone, dialing Ruth Ramsey, Gio's sister, now a DOD officer in Washington, D.C. She picked up fast. Ellie, what's so urgent? I briefed her on the barn, Marlene and the fake paper. She laughed over the line. Gio's at war again. That barn's on the military preservation list. I'll send docs now. Tell him I'm ready. I hung up, turning to Gio. Ruth says the barn's federally protected. You knew all along, didn't you? After the call with Ruth, I knew Gio had a bigger plan than just shaming Marlene in front of Pine Hollow. Ruth's sending Defense Department docs. I said, setting the phone down. She says the barn's federally protected. You knew that from the start, right? Gio smirked. That smirk reminding me of when he told me about fooling a German regiment with fake smoke. Knew it since I laid the first plank, Ellie. But now I need allies and evidence. He stood, leaning on his cane, stepping onto the porch to eye the barn wreckage. Get Eddie Sullivan over here, he said. He helped me build that barn from Fort Grayson Wood. Time for him to speak up. I nodded, dialing Eddie Tank Sullivan, an old vet living in a home a few miles off. Eddie answered in a raspy voice. Ellie Harper? Gio in trouble again? I laughed. HOA tore down the barn this time, Eddie. Gio needs you. He agreed instantly, saying he'd be there in an hour. When Eddie arrived, he hobbled in carrying an old photo of him and Gio by the newly built barn, Thunderbolt in the background. Me and Gio used Fort Grayson timber, Eddie said, voice shaky with age but proud. That barn wasn't just a horse shed. It was Army legacy. Marlene tearing it down insults our whole regiment. I wrote down every word, feeling like I was gathering ammo for Gio. He clapped Eddie's shoulder. Good work, Tank. Your words'll hit harder than their excavator. I decided to seek support beyond the family. I drove to the Willow Gazette office to meet Clara Dawson, the local reporter who once covered Willow Creek's corn festival. I handed her the fake order, and told her about the barn. Marlene forged government docs to destroy a military legacy, I said, showing the land record copy from the Grayson County office. Clara frowned, flipping the paper. She misspelled Creek. Amateur move. I'll run this. Gio's a legend here. I smiled. Thanks, Clara. He'll love the headline. Back home, I found Gio reading Marlene's latest threat. A hastily printed sheet accusing him of disrupting the community, for not cooperating. He laughed hard, tossing it on the table. Disrupting. I disrupted the Germans and they thanked me for losing fast. She just shot herself in the foot again. I gave him Eddie's statement, and the update on Clara. He nodded. Good. Now we've got the Defense Department, a vet, and the press. Marlene doesn't know who she's up against. I asked, what do you think Marlene will do next? She doesn't seem scared. He sipped his coffee, gazing at the field. She'll double down, Ellie. People like her don't back off. They just ran into walls. But we've got her fake order, Vic's words, and Ruth's docs. She wanted to wreck the barn. I'll make her rebuild every plank. He pointed at me. Write it all down. Everything from the orange sticker to her live stream voice. This is strategy, not a game. Eddie sat there, nodding. Gio's never lost a fight, Ellie. Marlene's got no chance. Clara called back soon after, saying the story would hit the front page tomorrow with the headline, HOA destroys military legacy. Retired general strikes back. I read it to Gio, and he grinned. Sounds like a march order. Now we just wait for Marlene to dig her hole deeper. I stood beside Gio in the Pine Hollow meeting hall, the air thick with the murmurs of Willow Creek folks gathered to hear Marlene explain the barn demolition. Clara Dawson's Willow Gazette article dropped this morning, headlined, HOA destroys military legacy. Retired general strikes back, stirring up the whole neighborhood. Gio, leaning on his cane in his old army jacket, looked at me. Ellie, get your phone out and record. She's gonna shoot herself in the foot again today. I nodded. Marlene stepped to the podium in a loud blue blazer, gripping the mic like a TV host. Dear community, she began, voice dripping with fake sweetness. The barn demolition was for Pine Hollow's safety and progress. It was a fire hazard, a rotting pile. We need to modernize. I saw a few nods, but most whispered to each other. Eyes skeptical. Gio muttered to me, modernize? She wants to turn my land into a strip mall parking lot. He stood, walking slowly to the hall's center, holding up a stack of docs from Ruth at the Defense Department. Miss Baxter, he said, voice booming like a march order, You just tore down a federally protected military legacy, not a rotting pile. That barn was built from Fort Grayson timber, listed in Virginia's state registry. Got any permits? Marlene paled but quickly regained her swagger. Mr. Ramsey, we had a legal demolition order. You can't stop progress. I hit record on my phone, heart pounding. Gio smirked, holding up the fake order I'd found. Legal. Here's your order. Misspelled seal, signature like chicken scratch. Grayson County says no approval exists. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some pointing at Marlene. He turned to Victor. Vic Malone slouched at the back, head down. Vic, speak up. Who gave you this paper? Vic stood, hands trembling, voice faint. Marlene gave it to me, paid me cash up front, said it was legit, threatened to blacklist me if I didn't do it. I didn't know it was fake. The hall erupted in boos, some shouting, she tricked us. Marlene grabbed the mic. That's a lie. I just wanted to improve the neighborhood. But Gio cut in, voice sharp as a blade. Improve it by wrecking federal property. You just confessed in front of 100 people. Miss Baxter. I zoomed in on Marlene's face, confidence crumbling to panic in seconds. She screamed, "You'll regret crossing me," then bolted from the hall, leaving the mic to crash on the floor. The crowd stood, some clapping, others shaking their heads in disgust. I stopped recording, turning to Gio. "You did it." She ran off, but he shook his head, eyes still icy. "Not done yet, Ellie. This was just the opening shot. She'll come back, and we've got to be ready." As we left the hall, a few Pine Hollow folks came to shake Gio's hand. An old lady named Martha, who'd taken wedding photos by the barn, gripped his hand. "Thank you, Gio. That barn was my memory." He nodded. "Not just yours, but my whole regiment's." I felt his strength, not just a general, but a keeper of the community's fire. Yet I knew Marlene wouldn't quit. She'd double down, like he said, and we'd need more than Vic's words or Clara's article to take her down for good. On the drive back I asked, "What's next, Gio?" He settled into his armchair, sipping coffee. "Now we've got the community, the Defense Department, and proof of forgery. Next is court. I'll make her rebuild that barn, plank by plank." I nodded, feeling like I'd just stepped into a battle he'd planned ages ago. I asked, "You're suing them, with what we've got?" He nodded, tapping the table. "Suing Marlene, suing her whole HOA. We've got the fake order, Vic's testimony, Defense Department docs, and 100 witnesses to her confession. That barn wasn't just wood. It was Thunderbolt, Fort Grayson, Army legacy. They'll rebuild it, every plank." I nodded, feeling like I'd been handed a march order. He told me to organize the evidence while he sat writing an open letter to Pine Hollow. I watched him type on his old battlefield typewriter, each word crisp. "Dear community, the barn they destroyed wasn't just mine, it was our history. Built from Fort Grayson wood, where Thunderbolt, the legendary parade horse, stood. Marlene Baxter forged papers, tore it down for personal gain. I'll fight to restore it, and I need you with me." I read it, exclaiming, "Gio, this is like a troop muster." He grinned. "Exactly. Send it to Clara. She'll print it." I called Clara Dawson, giving her the letter and the hall video. She laughed over the phone. "Gio writes like this. All Willow Creek'll rise up. I'll run it tomorrow." Headlined, "General Ramsey calls for justice. HOA faces lawsuit." I hung up, turning to Gio. "Clara says the whole town will read it. Marlene's done for." He smirked. "Good. The public's our reinforcements. Now we need bigger guns." He pulled out an old wartime journal, worn leather cover, flipping to a page about the barn. "Ellie, read this," he said, pointing to a handwritten entry. "The day I built the barn from Fort Grayson wood, Thunderbolt stood there, nose high like he knew he was a star. This wasn't just a shelter, it was the regiment's honor." I read aloud, feeling like I was hearing a march order. He nodded. "Write it down. This is ammo for court. They'll see it's not just wood." As I scribbled, a new letter from Marlene arrived by mail, sloppily printed on cheap paper, accusing Gio of public disturbance, and threatening neighborhood safety for inciting residents. I laughed. "Threatening safety? She think you're a German spy." Gio took it, skimmed it, then roared with laughter. "I disturbed the Pentagon once over warhorse budgets, and they thanked me. She just handed us another bullet." He tossed it on the table. "Keep this. It's proof she's panicking." I asked, "What do you think Marlene'll do next?" She ran from the hall. He sipped coffee, gazing at the field. "She'll double down, Ellie. Her type doesn't retreat. But we've got it all. The fake order, Vic's words, Ruth's docs, your video, and the community. She wanted to wreck the barn. I'll make her beg forgiveness in front of all Virginia." He pointed at me. "Sort the evidence. I'll call Ruth, get more Defense Department papers. This is strategy, not a joke. I nodded, stacking papers into piles. The fake order, Eddie's statement, Vic's confession video, Gio's open letter. Ruth called back soon. Ellie, just sent docs confirming the barn's a federally protected asset. Tell Gio, I'll testify if needed. I relayed it to him, and he grinned. Good. Ruth's heavy artillery. Marlene doesn't know she just poked the whole Defense Department. As I finished sorting, he stood, holding an old army badge. This isn't just a barn, Ellie. It's honor. Marlene thinks she can erase it with a clipboard and live stream. I'll show her what real victory looks like. I looked at him, feeling like I stood before a general gearing for battle. After weeks of prep, with a stack of evidence thick as a March log, and Gio's open letter firing up Pine Hollow, it was time for him to land the decisive blow on Marlene Baxter and her HOA. He wore his old army jacket, cane in hand, staring ahead like a general before a fight. I whispered, "You ready?" He smirked. "Ellie, I was ready before she even picked up that clipboard." Marlene walked in, wearing a loud blue blazer, flanked by her lawyer Norman Pierce, a tall guy with slicked back hair, looking like he'd just stepped out of an insurance ad. She glanced at me and Gio, flashing a forced smile, but I saw her hand tremble as she set it on the defendant's table. Judge Laura Hensley, a petite woman with eyes sharp as knives, banged her gavel. "Let's begin. Plaintiff, Mr. Ramsey, proceed." Gio stood slowly, voice booming, like a battlefield command. "Your Honor, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is arrogance, ignorance, and destruction of federal property. My barn, a military legacy built from Fort Grayson timber, was demolished by defendant Marlene Baxter, without permits, using forged documents, for personal gain." Norman rose, voice smooth. "Your Honor, this was a community action. The barn was a fire hazard, and the HOA has the right to improve the neighborhood." I wanted to yell in his face, but Gio just sat down, smirking. "Let him dig his hole, Ellie." Then he called the first witness, Eddie Tank Sullivan. Eddie hobbled up, holding an old photo of him, and Gio by the barn. "I helped Gio build it from Fort Grayson wood," Eddie said, voice raspy but firm. "It was our regiment's legacy, not trash to tear down." Norman countered, "Did you ever safety check it?" Eddie scoffed, "I built bunkers against artillery, buddy. That barn was sturdier than your house." Next came Ruth Ramsey, stepping up in a black suit, carrying Defense Department docs. "The barn's listed on the Federal Preservation Registry," she said, voice crisp. "It's part of a military heritage restoration project. Demolishing it breaks the law." She handed the stack to the court clerk, her gaze sweeping over Marlene like a lazy recruit. Norman stammered, But there's no proof the demolition was illegal." Gio chuckled beside me. "He's running out of ammo." I stood when he signaled, holding his journal. "Your Honor, I'd like to read from Gio's journal," I said, voice shaky but steadying. "The day I built the barn from Fort Grayson wood, Thunderbolt stood there, nose high like he knew he was a star. This was the regiment's honor." I paused, looking around. Some wiped tears, even the clerk. Gio nodded. "Thanks, Ellie. It wasn't just wood, it was history." Norman cut in. "Emotion isn't law." But Laura Hensley banged her gavel. "Quiet. Continue, Mr. Ramsey." Gio held up the fake order. "This is the defendant's approval. Misspelled seal, signature like chicken scratch. Grayson County confirms no order exists." He turned to Vic. Malone, slouched at the back, head down. "Vic, speak." Vic stood, voice trembling. "Marlene gave me that paper, paid cash, said it was legit. I didn't know it was fake." The courtroom buzzed. Laura banged again. Gio landed the final blow. The video I'd shot at the Pine Hollow meeting. The screen lit up, Marlene's voice echoing. "I just wanted to improve the neighborhood." Then Vic confessing, "She threatened to blacklist me." The room laughed, some shouting, "She's done." Marlene shot up, face red. "That's a lie. I did nothing wrong." But Gio looked at her, voice low. "You just confessed again, Miss Baxter. No permits, forged papers, destroying federal property. What else you got?" Norman yanked her down, whispering something, but I saw panic in Marlene's eyes. Laura Hensley called a recess, and I turned to Gio. "You did it. She's got no way out." He smirked. "Not done, Ellie. The ruling's the victory." When court resumed, Laura returned, voice sharp. "The defendant had no authority, no permits, and no sense. The HOA and Marlene Baxter are liable for destroying federal property, forging documents, and trespassing on private land." The ruling rang out, a $400,000 fine, ordered to rebuild the barn to its original design under state oversight. Marlene went pale, Norman bailed mid-sentence, leaving her trembling there. The crowd cheered. Laura banged, "Order," but I caught her smiling. I grabbed Gio's hand as we left. "You won. They've got to rebuild the barn." He nodded, eyes blazing. "Justice doesn't mess around, Ellie." Marlene thought she could erase a legacy with a clipboard. I just gave her a lifelong lesson. I laughed, feeling like I'd watched a battle Gio planned before Marlene grabbed the excavator. The crowd didn't just show for the ruling. They came for Gio. After the open letter in the Willow Gazette and my video from the meeting, all of Willow Creek rallied behind him. Martha, who'd taken wedding photos by the barn, brought homemade cookies. "Gio, I want to see it stand like before." Eddie Tank Sullivan, limping but fired up, led a group of vets with tools. "We built it once, we'll build it again." I grinned. "Gio, you've got a regiment here." Rebuilding started right after, not just with pros but neighbors, kids hauling water, grandparents sweeping up. Gio stood in the field, directing like a general. "That beam goes straight. Fort Grayson wood doesn't bend." I saw Vic Malone, the contractor who'd torn it down, show up in a hard hat, head low. "Mr. Ramsey, I'm sorry, I'll help rebuild." "No charge." Gio eyed him, nodded. "Good. Earn redemption with sweat." I jotted that down, feeling like I was witnessing a victory beyond paper. Clara Dawson came with a camera, snapping every moment. She ran a new Gazette piece. "Ramsey Barn rises. Community unites. After justice." But the real surprise was a group of Willow Creek school kids showing up with a wooden plaque. "Ramsey Barn, symbol of justice and history." Gio eyed it, smirked. "Bit cheesy, but I'll allow it." I laughed hard, knowing he liked it more than he'd admit. As the barn took shape, Marlene vanished completely. Post-trial, she stopped showing at Pine Hollow. No HOA meetings, no live streams, no orange stickers. I heard she tried appealing, but Judge Laura Hensley shot it down before the ink dried. Then one morning, I saw a for sale sign, at Marlene's house, priced so low everyone knew she was fleeing. Vic told me, she called me after court, told me to burn the papers, but I said no. "She's done, Ellie." I asked Gio, "Where do you think Marlene went?" He sipped coffee, gazing at the new barn, ran off like a deserter. "She thought a clipboard was a crown, but now she's lost her kingdom." I laughed, but shivered thinking of Marlene's arrogance. She thought she was untouchable, not knowing who Gio was. The barn wasn't just rebuilt, it became a small museum, with the kids' plaque in a corner displaying Thunderbolt photos from Gio's journal. Eddie led school tours, telling Fort Grayson tales, while I snapped pics for Clara. The dedication came when the last beam was set. Gio rode in on an old horse borrowed from a nearby farm, posture like a parade general. The crowd roared, some yelling, "Gio, you're a legend." I stood beside him, pride swelling. Clara's final piece read, "Ramsey Barn from ashes to glory," calling Gio the guardian of legacy. I read it to him and he grinned. "Sounds like a victory report. Good work." The dedication ended, but what stood wasn't just a structure. It was a symbol of justice, memory, and community strength, something Gio fought relentlessly to protect. He sat with me on the porch armchair, coffee in hand, eyes quietly scanning the field like a general who'd reclaimed a stronghold. "Ellie," he said, voice warm and low, "justice is like that barn, built slow, but once it's solid, nothing can shake it." Everything changed after the trial and rebuild. Willow Creek folks started calling it Ramsey Barn, and they held an annual barn day, a small fest with bake stands, folk music, and a cornbread eating contest I'd bet Gio secretly loved. Kids ran around the barn, students came to hear Eddie Tank Sullivan talk Thunderbolt and Fort Grayson, and I took photos for Clara Dawson's Willow Gazette. Gio never officially endorsed the fest, but I saw him show up yearly, sitting in a corner with coffee, watching like a commander inspecting camp. One evening as golden sunlight blazed across the field, Gio called me inside. He pulled a small envelope from a drawer, handed it to me. I opened it, finding a deed co-ownership transfer, my name beside his, with a worn army badge tucked next. "Gio, what's this?" I asked, voice shaky. He looked at me, eyes softening rare. "You're next, Ellie. I fought my fight. This land's yours now. Keep it from the clipboard crowd." "Got it." I nodded, choked up. "I promise, Gio, no Marley's getting near it." He laughed loud, the laugh after a German defeating tale. "Good, I trust you." Marlene, meanwhile, vanished from Pine Hollow entirely. After her house sold cheap, I heard she moved to some small town, trying to restart. But Marlene Baxter now tied to the barn lawsuit. I'd bet her new HOA Googled, and saw the ruling fast. She wasn't a president, or neighborhood crusader anymore. Just a loser trying to forget her clipboard and live streams. Gio heard that, smirked. She wanted to modernize. Now she's modernizing her life in silence. He got offers post-lawsuit. 2 law schools wanting talks. A preservation group inviting him to a seminar. He declined all, sending polite notes. I don't talk much. The barn speaks for me. But he agreed to a short Courage of Willow Creek podcast interview. I sat beside him as he recorded, voice deep over the mic. Know your rights, stand your ground, and don't let self-titled business card pushers shove you off your land. That's the barn's lesson. I grinned. Short as a march order, huh? He nodded. Too many words waste time. One afternoon, we walked the barn, new wood creaking underfoot, hay scent wafting like old memories. He paused mid-barn, leaning on the railing, gazing at the creek. You know, Ellie, the barn's not just a tie to the land. It's a test of strength, patience, time. Some things fall, but the worthy stand back up. He turned to me, eyes blazing. I built it first for the regiment. Now you keep it for family, and Willow Creek. I wanted to say something profound, but blurted. I won't let it fall again, Gio. I promise. He clapped my shoulder, grinning. Good. I didn't raise you to lose. We stood there a bit, watching water flow under the barn, its shadow stretching across both banks. The barn stood solid, not just wood, but the legacy Gio left, not just for me, but the community that rose with him. As the sun set, I thought of Marlene and her HOA. They thought they were untouchable, not knowing who Gio was. He didn't just win a fight, he rebuilt a symbol, leaving a lesson on justice and honor I'd carry forever. The barn stood there, unmoving, right where it belonged, and this time, it wasn't going anywhere. The story HOA Demolished My Grandpa's Barn, didn't know he's a retired general and it was listed, mirrors real issues in US society today, especially tensions between individual rights and collective power, and the importance of preserving history amid rapid modernization. Gio, a retired general, battled Marlene in the Pine Hollow HOA when they demolished his barn, a military history symbol from Fort Grayson Wood, using fake papers and personal ambition. This reflects reality in America, where homeowners associations, HOAs, often face criticism for overreach, imposing harsh rules on private property, like Marlene wielding her clipboard to control the neighborhood. Gio's legal fight, backed by Ruth at the Defense Department and Willow Creek's community, shows the power of knowing your legal rights and uniting, a common theme when Americans face local injustices. The story's takeaway applies straight to real US life. Know your rights and don't hesitate to defend them, especially against overreach. Gio didn't just lean on military experience. He used hard evidence, Marlene's fake order, Vic's testimony, my video, to win, reminding us knowledge and documentation are potent weapons in America's legal system. His patience, waiting for Marlene to dig her hole at the meeting, teaches that victory sometimes needs strategy over confrontation. Finally, the community rebuilding the barn and turning it into a small museum shows history's value, like Thunderbolt and Fort Grayson, in bonding people, a reminder that in America, where urban growth often overshadows the past, we must preserve heritage to remember our roots. So if you face a Marlene in real life, be it an HOA, local official, or anyone, learn from Gio, arm yourself with knowledge, find allies, and fight for what's right. Because justice, like that barn, may build slow, but stands forever. Don't forget to subscribe to catch stories like Gio's fight for his barn. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, with more unexpected justice battles.